Islam is not a religion of peace. Bottom line. And this is not according to one sect. This is according to the Quran itself. And all the Islamic sects, denominations, follow a major book, and that's Quran. And Quran in itself is not peaceful. It's a mental illness, in other words. And the Muslims, whether they know what Islam is or they don't know what Islam is, as long as they identify with this sick ideology, I consider them psychopaths. Those who claim that Islam is a religion of peace, they are liars. They are all paid actors. They are all compromised by the sheikh oil money. And they don't want to piss off Islamic political regimes and Islamic money and Muslim investors. And most importantly, they want to avoid the Muslim rage. So they just keep dragging humanity into the trap that Islam is a religion of peace, while it's not.
Listening to someone raised in a Muslim environment and familiar with the Quran question aspects of their religion is eye-opening. The perspective of someone who has grown up in a specific cultural and religious context adds a complex dimension to religious interpretations. This kind of criticism from within challenges pre-established notions and outside opinions about Islam. In addition, it opens a space to reflect on how personal experiences can shape someone's view of their religion. Ultimately, this raises questions about the diversity of perspectives within the same faith. Religion is a central aspect of many people's identity, and those who grow up in intense religious environments often face internal conflicts. The perspective of someone who has been immersed in the faith from a young age but then questions it brings authenticity and depth. This can change the way criticism is perceived, especially when it comes from a person with insider knowledge of the religion. By sharing experiences, it allows others to understand reality from another perspective. The nature of these views also challenges the idea that criticisms of a religion come solely from outside perspectives. When someone criticizes religion from within, especially a prominent family member in the religious context, it suggests genuine personal motivation. It leads us to question whether these criticisms are exceptions or if they reflect concerns shared by more people in that same community. This inner voice poses a different point of view than an external critic, since it comes from a deep knowledge of religious teachings. It opens the debate on how these interpretations can affect both members of the religion and outside observers. Exploring this point of view helps to better understand the complexities of religion, personal interpretations, and the impact of religious teachings on daily life.
The God of the Quran, Allah, is not peaceful. He's a very violent God. He's not tolerant. He hates the Jewish people. He hates the non-Muslims. And he gives the authority to the Muslims to punish the non-Muslims if they don't obey Allah, to function as the sword of Allah on earth. And this by itself is blasphemic, is wrong, is against the way of life, is against the way of evolution, it's against religion, it's against morality, it's against diversity. I was conditioned to be a Muslim. Later on, I went to a Sharia school. I studied Islam. I memorized huge portions of the Quran. I read the Quran on a regular basis. I studied classic Arabic to understand the language of the Quran. I spent most of my childhood and up to my mid-20s in that environment.
The idea that the Quran can instruct or justify violence is a deeply controversial claim. This interpretation is often presented as one of the reasons for misunderstandings between believers and those who observe religion from the outside. The claim that certain religious texts contain mandates of violence has been the subject of debate and division over time. Those who hold this view often feel that religion should be interpreted more peacefully, and this discrepancy creates friction between different interpretations. The interpretation of violence in religious texts is not unique to Islam, but the discussion here centers on how the Quran has been used to justify specific acts. This calls into question the intent behind these texts and how they have been used historically. It also raises the question of whether violence is inherent in religion or whether it is a product of human interpretations. This is a sensitive and complex debate, as it affects both those who are part of the religion and those who observe from the outside. Many argue that the historical and cultural context in which the Quran was written influences its interpretation, suggesting that certain violent teachings should be understood within that framework. This view is an attempt to soften interpretations that might sound aggressive by today's standards. However, others believe that the teachings should be timeless and should not justify violent behavior. These conflicting positions contribute to internal and external divisions over how to correctly interpret the Quran. The claim that the Quran instructs violence raises the need for a deep dialogue about the nature of religious teachings. This is a topic that, although controversial, invites reflection on how religion should be practiced in modern society. In addition, it leads us to consider whether interpretations should adapt to current times or remain faithful to their origins.
About the millions of Muslims across the world who do not engage in jihad and who are peaceful.
Then they are not Muslims. Then they're just nominal Muslims. They have been given the identity of a Muslim because they were born in that environment, and they don't have any other identity. They are just weak individuals, and they don't practice Islam. According to Allah, they are going to hell, but for some reason, they just keep clinging and hanging on this identity. Muslims. It's pathetic. It's disgusting. And they don't earn my respect to identify with something they don't understand, or to identify with a Nazi ideology and pretend to be peaceful. So Islam is not ethnicity. It's not even a religion. It's a totalitarian system. And this system does not see anyone outside of it, does not recognize anyone out of it. It's a mental illness, in other words. And the Muslims, whether they know what Islam is or they don't know what Islam is, as long as they identify with this sick ideology, I consider them psychopaths. I consider them sick people, and they must seek help.
Yeah, there are you I think you called them nominal Muslims. I mean, you made a term for the millions of Muslims who are peaceful, and I just want to point out, they're not actors, right? Like there are millions of Muslims in this world who are peaceful. You can call them nominal if you want, but I just think it's worth noting, right? Isn't that an important fact? I think. Do you